My name is Natalie Dawson. I'm 28 years old, and for the past 8 years I served in the United States Army, missing 7 Christmases with my family. When my unit finally approved my holiday leave, I counted down the days like a child waiting for snow, packed my duffel with carefully wrapped gifts, and even booked a flight home to Charleston, South Carolina. I was standing in the barracks, zipping up my bag, when my phone buzzed with a message from my father. It read simply, "Don't bother coming home." I stared at the words, willing them to change, as if sheer disbelief could bend the pixels into kindness, but they remained cold and final. My reply took 5 minutes to type and 1 second to send. Fine. That was it. 7 letters to hold the weight of a broken reunion, a discarded daughter, and the fading echo of hope. I sat on the edge of my bunk until my commanding officer, Captain Marcus Bryant, found me still motionless 20 minutes later. When he read the message, he looked up and said, "Your father's a damn fool." I wanted to laugh, but instead told him I'd be staying behind for Christmas. "Like hell you are," a voice snapped from the doorway. It was my best friend in the unit, Cassandra Briggs. Cass had grown up in Vermont and already invited me to her parents' cabin for the holidays. "You're not spending the Christmas in a cinder block room with fluorescent lights. My mom already made you a stocking." I hesitated, grateful, but still stinging from the rejection. Cass wasn't having it. She grabbed my half-packed duffel and stuffed it into her car herself. And so, 2 days later, I found myself on a quiet back road outside a snowy village near Middlebury, Vermont, watching white flakes drift past the window of a log cabin I'd rented for 2 weeks. Cass had dropped me off with a thermos of her mom's hot cider, promising to return with reinforcements if I tried to disappear again. I appreciated the solitude but hated the silence. At the grocery store, choosing cereal with the focus of a bomb technician, I heard my name. "Natalie? Natalie Dawson?" I turned to see Rachel Myers, my best friend from high school, staring at me like a ghost. Her curly hair was shorter now, her face softer, more weathered, but the smile that followed was the same. I dropped at my basket and hugged her without thinking. "You're back," she said. "For good?" "Just on leave," I said vaguely. "Surprise visit." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Your parents must be thrilled." I paused. It was sort of last minute. She nodded, understanding flickering across her face like headlights in fog. "You're not staying with them, are you?" I found a cabin up near Crystal Creek. She didn't push. Instead, she asked if I had time for coffee. Over lattes and awkward laughter, I offered the abridged version, strained ties, awkward calls, a father who never forgave me for choosing a uniform over a business degree. "He's been different lately," Rachel said. "More paranoid. My parents used to do remodeling work with your dad. One day, no warning, he just cut them off. They said it was like he was trying to erase everyone who remembered when he wasn't rich." I tried to smile, but felt the chill under her words. "He tells people you never wanted to come home, that you ghosted them." I didn't respond. What could I say that didn't sound petty or pathetic? That I'd mailed medals and newspaper clippings home and received nothing but silence? That I'd waited 8 years to be invited back only to be told I was no longer part of the picture? That night, as I settled into the creaky couch by the fireplace, the silence returned, heavier now. I was just drifting off to sleep when a knock startled me upright. I reached instinctively for my side, then remembered I was unarmed and in Vermont, not Baghdad. Peeking through the window, I saw a familiar silhouette, My grandmother, Elaine Dawson, bundled in a coat, leaning on her cane, her expression equal parts fury and love. "Were you planning to tell me you were back in town?" she demanded when I opened the door. I hugged her tightly, suddenly 9 years old again. "How did you find me?" I asked, taking her coat. "Rachel's mom. This town has no secrets, Natalie. You know that." She settled onto the couch and looked around. "This is nice. Rustic. But it's not home. Why aren't you at the house?" I hesitated. "Dad sent a message. Said not to come back. That I'd upset Mom." Her eyes narrowed. "Your father's a coward." Then she leaned in, lowering her voice. "But there's more to it than that. The business is in trouble." "What kind of trouble?" I asked. "Legal? Financial? Both, maybe. He's been secretive. Your brother Daniel lost money on some bad investments. Your sister Melissa quit grad school. And your mom barely leaves the house. It's like everyone's unraveling but pretending it's fine." She reached for my hand. "You need to be careful. I think there are things they don't want you to know." The next day, a man came to fix a leaky pipe in the kitchen. Ryan Porter. Kind eyes, tool belt, and the unmistakable air of someone who'd seen his own share of storms. "Army?" he asked, eyeing my duffel. 8 years, I said. "My brother served in the Marines. Got out a few years back." Then he paused. "You're Harold Dawson's daughter, right?" I tensed, waiting for judgment. Instead, he frowned. "Must be tough, coming back to all this." "All what?" I asked. He hesitated. "Just talk around town. Your dad's company, Dawson Construction, is landing government contracts no one else can touch. Some say it's shady, blacklisted local contractors, projects with military ties that shouldn't be approved so fast." My mind began connecting dots I hadn't realized were there. Projects requiring security clearance. My name. My rank. My silence all these years. That night, I lay in bed unable to sleep. I thought about my medals tucked into a box in my duffel, about the compass I bought Daniel, the handmade scarf for Grandma, the leather journal for Melissa, about my father's message. "Don't bother coming home." And my answer. Fine. It was supposed to be the end of something, but now it felt like the beginning of something else entirely. The next morning, I woke up to frost on the inside of the windows and a strange weight on my chest that had nothing to do with the cold. I had planned to spend the day tucked under a blanket reading one of the novels I'd brought with me, but my fingers itched for action, for answers. After brushing snow from my windshield, I drove into town and parked outside the public library, the same red brick building where I'd written my first high school essay. The computers had been updated, but the smell was the same dust and discipline. I started digging. What I found wasn't definitive, but it was alarming. 5 years ago, Dawson Construction shifted its entire portfolio. The company had gone from local residential builds and commercial renovations to full-scale government contracts, mostly tied to military infrastructure. New barracks, communications hubs, training facilities, all requiring strict background checks, high-level clearance, and occasionally veteran affiliation. I cross-referenced contract filings and found several under the name Dawson Federal Division, signed by someone listed as Senior Military Liaison, Captain Natalie Dawson. I never authorized that title, never signed a single one of those forms. The dates matched my deployments. Afghanistan, Syria, places where I was half a world away, ducking mortars, not filing paperwork. As I exited the library, the wind cut sharper and the sky had turned a hard gray. I wrapped my scarf tighter and crossed the street to my car, only to pause. A black SUV was parked across the road, same one I'd seen 2 days earlier by the gas station. Dark tint. Government plates. My instincts stirred. I looped around the block twice, made a hard right near the town hall, and watched from a distance. The SUV followed, but subtly. Too subtle for coincidence. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the fire, boots still on, a notepad open in my lap. I listed every unusual thing. My father's message, Grandma's warning, Rachel's story about the contract cuts, Ryan's hint about under-the-table projects, the forged title, the shadowing SUV. It all pointed in one direction. Someone was trying to hide something big. The next day, I walked into the dockyard, a bar that hadn't changed in a decade, and found Daniel nursing a whiskey. He was slouched, older, softer in the jaw, his once sharp blue eyes bloodshot. When he saw me, he blinked. "Well, look what the cat dragged in." "I don't remember inviting the cat," I replied, sliding onto the bar stool beside him. He chuckled dryly and ordered another round. We sat in silence for a minute before I said, "How's the business?" He laughed, one bark, bitter and burnt. "Business? There's no business. It's a graveyard dressed in glass walls." "So it's true?" I asked. "Dad's sinking?" "He's past sinking," Daniel muttered. "He's clawing at the bottom of the ocean, and he dragged us with him." I stared at him. "So you knew?" He ran a hand through his thinning hair. "Not all of it. I knew he was using your name for clearance. I thought it was temporary, a loophole. He said you'd be fine with it." "He said that?" "He said a lot of things." "And you didn't stop him?" Daniel downed the rest of his drink and slammed the glass on the bar. "You think I had a say? Dad made all the calls. We just nodded or got cut out." He looked over at me. "I'm sorry, Nat. I should have warned you. I should have done a lot of things." "You still can," I said, but he was already standing. "Careful what you dig up. This family buries things for a reason." I watched him go, a man half drowned in regret. Back at the cabin, I found a folded note tucked under my windshield wiper. No envelope, no signature, just 6 words written in neat, slanted cursive. "Soldiers should know when to retreat." My spine went ice cold. That handwriting, I'd seen it on birthday cards, on scrawled notes left by the coffee machine growing up. It was my father's. I called Captain Bryant on a secure line. "Sir, I need to ask you something. Have there been any official requests verifying my clearance or credentials in the last few years?" There was a pause. "Why?" "Because I think someone's been using my service record to get federal contracts." Another pause, longer. "We've had inquiries, family businesses, construction firm, routine stuff. Why?" "Because I never signed anything, and now I'm being followed and warned to leave town." "Natalie," he said, voice low and serious, "you need to document everything. I'll get JAG involved immediately. This isn't just family drama anymore." I hung up and locked every door and window, pulled the curtains and sat in the dark with a notepad, writing every date, every encounter, every whisper I could remember. The next morning, another surprise waited. Melissa, my little sister, the academic golden girl turned ghost. She stood outside the cabin in a puffy coat, eyes hidden behind sunglasses. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside. She peeled off the glasses, and I saw the shadows under her eyes, the kind that came from months of insomnia. "I don't have long," she said. "Dad tracks our phones." "Melissa," I started, but she held up a hand. "I dropped out of my program. I wanted to teach kindergarten, not become a psychologist for people like Dad. He told me I was throwing everything away. He yelled for an hour straight, so I left. But I never stopped watching, and now he's spinning stories telling people you threatened him, that you're the reason the business is being investigated. He what? He needs someone to blame, and you're not here, so you're perfect." She looked around the cabin. "You're not safe. None of us are. And I think he's capable of more than just bad paperwork." Before I could speak, she was gone. I barely had time to process that before Ryan appeared later that evening, arms full of firewood and worry. "You okay?" he asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse," I replied. "I think I've seen the truth." We sat by the fire as I told him everything: Melissa's visit, Daniel's confession, the SUV, the note. When I finished, he said quietly, "You ever think your dad didn't just exploit your service, he built the whole operation around it?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe he knew you'd enlist. Maybe that's why he pushed you out, so he could build a fallback plan in case the business ever tanked. And when it did, he already had a daughter with military clearance, with a spotless record, who'd never looked too closely because she wasn't even around." The idea hit me like a gut punch. Could that be true? Had I been a tool from the beginning, a part of a long game I never knew I was playing? I looked at Ryan. "If you were me, what would you do?" He didn't hesitate. "Expose everything. Protect yourself. And if it burns the house down, let it. Sometimes fire is the only way to get rid of rot." I nodded slowly. I wasn't the girl who left Charleston with tears in her eyes anymore. I was a soldier, a daughter betrayed, and a woman who wasn't afraid to face the fire. The next morning, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize. It read, "Diner on Route 14, 11 a.m., come alone. Mom." The message pulsed on the screen like a heartbeat, and I stared at it for a full minute before typing OK. The Route 14 diner sat on the edge of town, far enough that my mother clearly wanted privacy. I arrived early, choosing a booth that gave me full view of the entrance and the parking lot. Every sound made me flinch. When she arrived, she looked like herself, but not. Her blonde hair was pinned into its usual bun, and her pearl earrings matched the buttons on her coat, but her hands trembled as she peeled off her gloves. "Natalie," she said, and it caught in her throat, "you look strong." "Military life will do that," I answered, more coldly than I intended. She winced but didn't comment. "Why the secrecy?" I asked. "Why the diner, the burner phone?" "Because he's watching everything," she said softly. "Your father, he monitors my calls, my GPS. I told him I had a hair appointment in Columbia." Her eyes welled up. "You need to leave." "Why?" I demanded. "What's going on?" "He's unraveling," she whispered, "blaming you for everything. The business collapsing, Daniel's bad investments, Melissa dropping out. He says it all started when you walked away from the family plan." I nearly laughed. "The plan? You mean the life he wrote out for all of us in stone without asking?" She lowered her head. "I'm not saying he's right, but he's dangerous now. He thinks you've come home to destroy everything." "I haven't come home to destroy anything. I came back to breathe." "Then breathe somewhere else," she begged. "For your safety." Did you know? I asked. About the documents, the contracts, the fake titles with my name. She stared at the table, then said, I suspected. He became so secretive, locking his office, shredding papers, but I didn't want to believe he'd go that far. And when you did believe? It was too late, she whispered. He already had everything in place. I swallowed my fury. Then you stood by and watched him forge his daughter's name and use her service like a pawn. I'm sorry, she said, and tears slid silently down her cheeks. I should have protected you. I nodded once and stood. You can't protect me now, but you can help fix this, decide which side of the story you want it to be on. She didn't reply. She just watched me walk out. By the time I returned to the cabin, a storm was starting to brew outside and in. I called Captain Bryant again, this time with everything. Sir, I need legal support immediately. Within 2 hours, a secure connection was arranged with a JAG Corps attorney named Major Lisa Hernandez. I explained the situation in full detail, sent scans of the documents Grandma had found, laid out everything I'd been told by my siblings, my mother, even the town whispers. This is identity fraud, Sergeant, she said after a long silence. And if your father used your credentials knowingly to obtain federal military contracts, we're looking at serious federal crimes, potentially including contract fraud and violations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice if any false statements were filed. I want to clear my name, I said, and I want to hold him accountable. Then document everything, and be ready to testify. This won't be easy, but it's necessary. That night I stayed up creating a timeline. Deployments, dates of contracts, messages, witnesses, every thread that could help tie together the tapestry of deceit. And I wasn't alone. Grandma showed up the next morning with a folder. She had broken into my father's safe, something I didn't think she'd ever admit, and found the originals of at least 4 forged documents with my signature. He thinks that house is his fortress, she said, but I built it. I know every panel and every hiding place, and if he's willing to burn the truth, I'll dig through the ashes. I hugged her so tightly she had to swat me off. You've always been braver than the rest of us, I whispered. No, dear, she replied, just older and more done with nonsense. That night, I received a call from Captain Bryant. Your records have been flagged, he told me. A routine audit caught inconsistencies in your security clearance usage. You need to come in, now. What does that mean? It means the military suspects you might be involved. Until you prove otherwise, you're under review. My heart dropped. You don't believe that, do you? I believe you, Natalie. But this is bigger than one family scandal. This is federal. I knew what had to be done. I couldn't just protect myself. I had to preempt the narrative my father was already spinning. So I called Reynolds and Payne, the local law firm my family had used for generations, and demanded a meeting. Howard Reynolds met me the next morning in his office overlooking the harbor. You know, this could bring your entire family down, he said, sliding the folder of documents across the table. It already did, I replied. I'm just the one brave enough to say it out loud. The prosecution is coming, he said. The investigation is real, and it's only a matter of time before indictments drop. Then I'm here to make sure they drop on the right heads. Your father is in the hospital, he said. He had a heart attack the night after he got a message he claimed was from you. I never sent it, I said. Then who did? Someone pretending to be me, to paint me as vindictive, someone desperate. You really think he'd let you take the fall? I looked Howard in the eye. I think he already tried. Outside his office, Ryan was waiting, his truck warm, his hand steady. "You're doing the right thing," he said as we drove through the snow. "Even if it doesn't feel like it yet." "I don't feel brave," I said. "I feel like the kid who got kicked out for not fitting the family plan." "Then maybe the plan was the problem," he replied. "Not you." That night, I sat by the fire, the heat from the flames doing little to melt the cold building in my chest. My family had lied, betrayed, exploited. But I was still standing, still whole, still Natalie Dawson. And for the first time, that felt like enough. 3 days after my meeting with Howard Reynolds, the federal subpoenas arrived. Dawson Construction was officially under investigation for procurement fraud, falsification of military credentials, and obstruction of federal review. My father, Harold Dawson, lay in a hospital bed recovering from surgery, unaware that the storm he created was finally rolling toward him. I received the call from Major Hernandez that same evening. "Your name has been cleared," she said simply. "The internal audit confirmed you had no knowledge or participation in the contract filings. We'll issue a formal statement to that effect tomorrow." I thanked her and sat in silence on the porch of the cabin, watching snow fall in heavy sheets against the woods. The relief came not as a burst, but a slow exhale, like air returning after a long-held breath. I was free. But freedom came with weight. That weekend, I returned to Charleston, not to the family house, but to Grandma Elaine's cottage, where she had begun gathering old friends, allies, and family members who had quietly pulled away from my father over the years. Rachel came with her husband and 2 children. Ryan brought his brother, a fellow Marine, who nodded at me with the silent respect of someone who understood war in more ways than one. Daniel showed up late, unshaven but sober, holding a folder of his own. "I've been talking to the feds," he said. "I'm cooperating. I told them everything I knew and everything I didn't want to know. It's not too late to become who you were meant to be," I told him. And for the first time since we were kids, he looked at me with something that wasn't shame. "I don't even know what that means," he muttered. "But maybe that's the point." Melissa arrived the next morning, eyes tired but lighter than before. She had enrolled in an early childhood education program online and was finally sleeping through the night. "I don't know who I am without Dad's expectations," she said, sipping tea on the porch beside me. "Someone you can be proud of," I said, "not because of what you achieve, but because of what you choose." Our mother came last. She stood outside the gate for a long time before Grandma walked out and opened it. I watched them speak in low tones, then hug. When she walked inside, she didn't say much, just held my hand silently as we watched the fire. "He's asking for you," she said eventually. "I don't think I'm ready," I replied. "He may never be ready either," she said. "But that doesn't mean the conversation shouldn't happen." I didn't go the next day, or the one after that. Instead, I returned to the library, where I met with the Veterans Liaison for the state. We talked for hours about the gaps in reintegration programs, about housing for female veterans, about employment challenges for those returning with scars both visible and hidden. "I want to stay," I told him. "I want to build something here, something honest." Ryan picked me up afterward and drove me to a lot near the harbor. "It used to be a shipping yard," he said. "Now it's for sale, zoned for mixed use. I thought maybe you'd want to take a look." I did. And for the first time since coming home, I began to imagine a future that wasn't tied to the Dawson name, but to my own. On the third week, I went to see my father. He looked smaller somehow, pale and sunken into the hospital bed, tubes and monitors softening the edges of his once imposing presence. When he saw me, he reached weakly for the remote to turn off the TV. "I didn't think you'd come," he said. "Neither did I." "They told me I'm under house arrest after discharge," he said, "that the business is being taken over by the court, that Daniel and Melissa are cooperating with investigators." "They are. And you?" "I testified," I said. "I gave them the truth." He closed his eyes and nodded. "I deserve that." "You deserve the consequences," I said. "Not because I hate you, but because that's what accountability looks like." "I did love you, you know," he said, "in my own way. I just didn't know how to let go of the plans I made for you. And when I didn't follow them, you punished me." "I was proud of you," he whispered. "When the newspaper printed your photo, when the medal came in the mail, I kept them all. I just couldn't say it." "Words matter," I said. "You used yours to cut me out of your life and to sign mine without permission. I'm sorry, that's not enough, but it's something." We didn't hug, we didn't cry. We sat for a while in silence, two Dawsons separated by more than blood. And when I left, I didn't look back, not out of spite, but because I had already seen everything I needed to. That evening, Grandma hosted a small dinner. Nothing extravagant, just soup, bread, and a fire. But everyone came. Melissa helped in the kitchen. Daniel brought wine. My mother told a story that made us all laugh for the first time in weeks. And Ryan sat beside me, his hand resting quietly on mine beneath the table. "You saved your family," he said. "No," I replied. "I just stopped lying for it." A week later, the military formally cleared me of all connection to the Dawson contracts and invited me to speak at a seminar for veterans dealing with family reintegration challenges. I stood at the podium, looking out at rows of uniforms and civilian clothes, and told the truth. Not the one written in headlines or legal files, but the one that lived in the space between loyalty and liberation. "Sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought overseas," I said. "They're fought at the dinner table, in silence, in the expectations that weigh more than any rucksack. And sometimes the most powerful word you'll ever say isn't yes, it's fine. Not as surrender, but as survival. When I stepped down, people stood, clapped. Not for a Dawson, for me." That spring, I opened the first branch of Homefront Forward, a support center for returning veterans, in a converted red brick warehouse overlooking the harbor. The same harbor where I'd once watched ships leave, believing they carried lives braver and bolder than mine. Now I knew better. Bravery isn't always about charging into fire. Sometimes it's about walking away from a house full of ghosts with your head held high. On the wall of our front lobby, just above the welcome desk, I hung a plaque. It read, "The strongest homes are built from truth," and, in smaller letters beneath, "Dedicated to those who returned and those who rose again."